There's nothing to criticise about a heritage H-150 standard. Hell, it's made in the USA, isn't it? So, you know, it's the real deal really, isn't it? Cheapest you can get one of these is about £2,200, which is exactly the same price as you can get a Gibson Les Paul standard. Until now perhaps, because more recently Heritage have launched this, the import version, £249. I'm pleasantly surprised actually. But is it a good move? You know, it ain't Coca-Cola, it's rice. That would have worked if this was made in Vietnam. Hello, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Guitaristas. So this week, as promised, I'm going to review a Heritage H-150. But which one, I hear you ask? Last week I unboxed this one, didn't I? The new, cheap, import version of the Heritage H-150, the Ascent range. Yeah, Ascent range. This one, 249 English pounds. And I also showed you this one, which is I nearly said real one, but they're both real. An original standard H-150, USA made, you know, up to £2,500, depending where you buy them. So I asked you the question, which one should I review first this week? Fabulous response. Thanks to everybody that voted or even thought about it. It was a pretty much even race from the start. Ultimately now, where we are now, it's Tuesday now. The vote went live last Friday. Ultimately, as of now, the Ascent has 53% of the vote, and obviously the standard 47% of the vote. But that's been pretty much the story, you know, since it started. So yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? There's equal interest. So do you know what I'm going to do? And a few people suggested this anyway. I'm just going to do them both at the same time now. Get them done, get them out of the way. I think that'll be fun. It'll be a little bit confusing for me because it'll mean chucking two Les Paul shaped guitars around on this flight case come workbench. So there may be some bashing. But I'm going to have a go. What we're going to do is we're going to go through all the specs with both of these, pretty much side by side, and then we're going to take them apart. We'll do all the weights and measures. Yeah, you know, like we do. I'm not going to stop and carrying on. And then we're going to, take them apart, do all the pickup readings and all that stuff, you know. So there you go. Strap yourselves in. It'll probably be a long one, won't it? So, well, you know, timestamps are in the description box if you're in a hurry and you want to skip forward to any particular part of this review. If you've got a little bit of time on your hands, go and put the kettle on, get yourself a nice cup of tea and some nibbles or whatever. Come back and chill out and join us. And yeah, let's get stuck in. Let's look at some heritages. Yeah, let's do it. Let's start with a bit of history. Heritage. They're not massively known, are they? They are very well respected, but not widely known. That's what Phil McKnight said, and you got to, you know, trust what he says because he knows his stuff. And that's true, isn't it? So a lot of you won't be aware that heritage guitars, well, they started 1985 when Gibson moved out their original premises. I don't know what that means. When Gibson moved out, they're moving out their original premises in 225 Parsons Street, Kalamazoo. In the early 80s, 3 of their former Gibson employees, craftsmen, left. They thought, no. And what they thought, no, we're not going to Nashville. we're staying in Kalamazoo, and what they did is they took over part of the original Gibson premises along with a lot of their machinery, and they started Heritage Guitars in 1985. So carried on making Gibson Les Pauls and other models, I believe, as they had been up till that point, with a few design changes, obviously. Most notably, well, the headstock, innit? You know, that's a Marmite thing. I'm going to talk more about that later. And the other thing's obviously the pickguard, scratch plate. So, but to all intents and purposes, it's a Les Paul. And they've been making these things since then, and they're expensive. One of these, this is an older one, I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but one of these today, cheapest you can get one of these is about £2,200, which is exactly the same price as you can get a Gibson Les Paul standard. So, you know, they're a connoisseur's guitar, not widely known. Until now, perhaps, because more recently, well, just in February this year, Heritage have launched this, the import version. £249. That's a big difference. There have been, this is not made in Kalamazoo, Michigan. This is made in China. Now, Heritage were taken over in 2017, I believe, by a global music group. Ultimately, it's called Caldecott Music Group, and they own BandLab Technologies. They own NME Networks, which is guitar.com, NME in the UK, and Music Tech, and a bunch of brands such as under the I've got to just get this in, trying to be factually correct. Vista Musical Instruments, heading, I'll get there. They own mono cases, you know, mono, Harmony guitars, Tysco guitars, Heritage guitars, and some retail. Dawson's Music in the UK, Sweely in Singapore, and Manny's, who are now, I believe, just a digital pop-up store on the BandLab app. So you can get the main sources for these. Well, this new Ascent range is pretty much exclusively only available from Dawson's in the UK, Sweely in Singapore, and from Manny's on the BandLab app. This range, Heritage, obviously you can get in all sorts of places in the UK, Andertons. I'm not really sure in the US, but I know you can get them. I think you can get them there. Can you not? Anyway, if you can't, I know Dawson's will ship worldwide. I know Anderton's ship worldwide, and yeah, I know these are not hard to find. I've been thinking about getting one for a long time. So I got this specifically because I wanted to do a proper comparison, a proper expensive Lester comparison with the Gibson Les Paul, with my Eastman SB59, with my Tokai Love Rock, and with my Maybach Lester. And I wanted a Heritage, and I couldn't really afford a new one, you know, 2,200 quid. However, I found this in my local music shop, Morley's Music in Leon C. The price tag on this was 1,700. I went in and played it, and I loved it in the shop. I hope I can play this today as well as I did when I demoed it. Not demoed it, tried it out, because it just felt and sounded brilliant, but I can't. Anyway, 1,700 quid. I made Sam, the owner, a cheeky offer, and he accepted it. So thanks, Sam. That's appreciated. I don't suppose you'll be watching, but I thought I'd mention that anyway. There you go. So we now have, and this is in 1995, incidentally. So I imagine, you know, really kind of, it's 10 years after they launched. So really a real heritage, this one, isn't it? Whereas this is a brand new import. So let's, what we're going to do first is we're going to weigh them, and then we'll start talking about the specs and stuff. Let's do that. So first off, the USA version. This is a proper chunk of mahogany. Look at that. It's a solid one-piece back. It's got a two-piece, beautiful curly maple top back. Look at that. Really nice. It's no lightweight. Let's see what it is. £9, 5 ounces. So it's not too bad. That, of course, is 4.23 kilos. Now, the import here, this has got an Akume, which is a kind of mahogany body. It's got a dark back, so you can't see how many pieces. Belly carve, note the belly carve. And this has got a basswood cap, not maple. It's got a carved basswood cap. And yes, I am saying basswood and not basswood because I'm British, okay? Now, what you'll notice about this, it looks, it's one piece that I think, and there's no veneer on it. So I think that looks really attractive. Let's see how much it weighs. £8, 1 ounce, which is 3.68 kilos. Cool. Looking at the necks, the standard here, traditional mahogany set neck. We'll look at the specs and stuff in a minute. The import, it's got a bolt-on maple neck. And that's obviously a big difference. Bolt-on maple neck on that one. Let's get some strings off and then we'll dig a little bit deeper. So we'll start here with the standard. Bearing in mind this is an older model. It's nearly 30 years old, so some of the bits have changed. Only, as far as I can tell, only really the tailpiece and the bridge. These are Scheler, German parts. I wonder if this does come off. It's a weird kind of, what does it say? Oh yeah, made in Germany on the back there. Yeah, it's a weird kind of heavy, and I have no idea how it works either, and I think I'm going to have to learn. Well, that is weird. Look, it's kind of like a device, but it's pretty chunky, that. And the same here with the bridge. It's got a roller bridge. I've got one of these on one of my Maybachs, and that's a pretty cool thing, that. But bearing in mind, again, made in Germany, but bearing in mind, I looked at the new models of this now, and they appear to just have a Nashville style ABR1. Not a Nashville style ABR1, an ABR1 style tunematic as opposed to a Nashville tunematic. Yeah, an ABR1 and standard stop tailpiece. So they've kind of gone back to the more traditional. And Grover tuners there on the, I'm not sure if the angle of the headstock's the same as the Gibson or not, but as you can see, because it's a set neck, it's got that, you know, jaunty angle, whatever you like to call it. This one's got medium jumbo Jescar frets. It's an old guitar. I mean, it feels beautiful to play. And it's got an Indian rosewood fingerboard. Feast your eyes on that. It always gives you a nice warm feeling, doesn't it? When, you know, Indian rosewood, oh yeah. It's, yeah, a nice looking thing. I'm not sure what the nut's made out of. And, yeah, beautiful curly maple top. And now to the Ascent. It's a nice looking thing, isn't it? And it looks, I mean, well, from the front anyway, it's very appealing, you know, very much like the standard. Until you get to the neck, which, as I said, is a, hang on, right. Let's deal with the hardware because it's just fallen off. That's a Nashville style tunematic. Oh. Hang on, my screwdriver for that. It's a tip I learned, if it's a bit tight, just wiggle it and it should come off. It's not locked on, is it? It's just tight. Yeah, I mean, it's a cheap guitar, so you're going to have to expect some of the parts to look and feel a little bit cheap. The plating on it looks, yeah, fairly basic. So I'm going to just put that there. You see what I mean by fairly basic? It's just a bit shonky is the word that comes to mind. But it's a cheap guitar. So, you know, manage your expectations with parts like that. The same with the tuners. What I'm impressed about with the tuners is they've gone to the effort of putting correct look kidney. I think they call them kidney style buttons, don't they? Like the Grovers would have. But, you know, in reality, they're these cheap die-cast tuners that you get on everything. But the buttons look nice. So, yeah, from the front, it maintains that kind of aesthetic, nice aesthetic. But as I said, it's got a bolt-on neck. What I do notice, it's still got the angle. They've still got the angle of the dangle right. But it's a maple neck. It's got a laurel fingerboard, this one. You know, could do with a little bit of oil or Monty's wax or something like that, couldn't it, to make it look a little bit more appealing. Not sure what the nut's made out of on this. Medium jumbo frets. Same, this is, you might have noticed, it's got dot inlays as opposed to the trapezoids on the standard. It's got the binding and it's got, I mean, this is polyurethane finish, this, so there's no there's no blemishes that you often get. I forgot to mention that the Heritage standard is nitrocellulose finish, so same proper traditional Les Paul style. But this one here, unfortunately, there's a little bit of sharpness on the frets on this side of the board that you can feel if you run your fingers, or your tights, maybe if you want to run your tights down there, it'll rip them. It's fine on that side, but a little bit of sandpaper would deal with that. And of course that could be caused simply by temperature change from, you know, where it is made and shipped to, you know, to wherever you are anyway. So it's a thing, you know, it's a shame. I literally will get a sanding block. I'm going to do it now so you can see. I know this is probably not the proper way to do it, but it works, and you can't damage your guitar. Well, I mean, I don't think you can, because I like a guitar to look like it's been played and worn in anyway. So I'm not scared to do this. All I do is this. Look. I mean, how can you harm it? Or you might roll the fingerboard edge a little bit more or something, which is a good thing, isn't it? There you go. It's gone already. It's all it needs. Some people do this to all their guitars. It's amazing. Here you go. just you know, don't ask me to fix your guitars. There you go. So that's that. Let's have a look at the neck profile and measurements. Okay, here are the neck profiles and measurements at the first fret. First, the import version, and this is the US version. And here are the neck profile and measurements at the 12th fret. First, the import version, and this is the US version. Right, now let's take some pickup readings. On the standard, these are Seymour Duncan 59s. Same as they're putting them in nowadays. Well, I say these are, I think they are. In a minute, I shall look underneath and see if they've maybe been changed, but they should be Seymour Duncan 59s. Let's see what the readings are. On the bridge, you've got just over 8K, and the inductance of that is 3.38 Henrys. And on the neck, you've got a reading of 7.46 kilo ohms with an inductance of 2.87 Henrys. So nice vintage readings. Middle, for the sake of it. 3.88k. So that's that. We'll have a look and see if there are still Seymour Duncans in a second. Now, I'm not sure what they call the pickups in this Ascent. Something vintage, I think it might have been. But anyway, we'll have a look in a minute, see if they've got any markings underneath. But the readings, look, on the bridge here, oh, hello, 13.35k with an inductance of 5.68 Henrys. And on the neck, oh, hello, that's it. It's completely the other way around. It's 7.3 kilo ohms with an inductance of 3.01 Henrys. That's interesting. So let's just double check that. Got it all right. Bridge, 13.35k. Well, there you go. In the middle, 4.60. So you'd call that very hot, wouldn't you? Not really necessarily a vintage reading. It's be interesting to see what that sounds like. Okay, let's have a look underneath. So the standard here, it's meant to have Seymour Duncans. One sec, we'll find out. It's got a three-way, nice feeling, I think it's Switchcraft. It says it's got CTS custom pots. We'll have a look at that in a second. First off, let's have a look and see what this is. As you can see, it's worn. It's got a little crack in the pickup surround there. Let's pop. Oh, do you know what I've got to do first? I've got to take the pick guard off first, because I mean, I don't know. Again, it's kind of growing on me. My first impression, this pick guard, is like, it's horrible. But let's take it off. What do you think? Pick guard on or off? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's an odd thing, but it is growing on me. I don't know. The more I've sort of had this heritage have become more of a thing. Right. Let's see what's going on here. Here we go. Be careful, because this is a little bit fragile. There you go, Seymour Duncan, 59. You can see the thick maple cap there. There's no obvious neck tenon showing on this. I'm not sure if it, again, this is an older one, so whether or not they put long neck tenons on them, or whether there is and we just can't see it, I don't know. But there you go. Well, that's what it looks like. It all looks pretty original, doesn't it, that? Standard. Cool. So I think I'm going to leave the pick guard on the Ascent for now. Same layout as the standard. Three-way switch. Feels noticeably cheaper and clunky. Can hear that. Knobs. Oh. Same sort of top hat knobs, aren't they? Black top hat knobs. Come on, let's get the plastic off them. We'll have a look in there in a minute. Let's see what these pups are. Right. See what we've got. No info at all on the pickups apart from N for neck, B for bridge, and obviously you can see there's a bolt on neck, so that's kind of different there anyway. Substantial cap. It's just basswood instead of maple. It doesn't look a lot different inside to the other one, does it? Apart from obviously the bolt on neck. And finally, here's the switch. I'm surprised because it's a big old cavity and it's kind of like squeezed right up one end. It's a bit odd, isn't it? And here is the inside. The pots There you go. 0.22 caps. Vichy, was it? They called them something like that. I can't remember what they were called. 500k potentiometers. And how's this wired? I think it's modern wiring. Anyway, that's what that looks like. There's no shielding or anything on that. And here's the plate. Heritage Guitar Inc. model. It says H-150 CM Amber. CM's curly maple, I suppose. Amber. There you go. That's that one. And finally, look, the Ascent's got the same shape and size plate for the switch, but it's just got a little round root with a switch in there. I think that's just like a little PCB style one, isn't it? And then as expected, little mini pots. They're stamped CF, and it's got a little green Sputnik cap on each of the tone controls. No shielding, nothing on there. There you go. Let's now put these two back together, put a new set of strings on each of them, plug them in, see what they sound like. See you in a sec. Right, here we are, a new set of Ernie Ball regular slinkies on each of the guitars. I'm going to play a little bit on both of something sort of that should be familiar but not too familiar for copyright strike purposes, if you know what I mean. Which should be familiar as a sort of a Les Paul soundy thing. So you can get an idea if these fit. So it starts off on the neck pickup, rolled off a little bit on about 7, and then we'll go down to the bridge with it wide open. And yeah, I'm just like on each, so you'll get a kind of a direct comparison of the guitars with the knobbage on the same settings, and the amp obviously is the Princeton 65, which I always use on similar settings, although I have tweaked the treble a little bit, and I'm now in input number 2, and I can't remember exactly what that means. I think it's just a cut, a dB cut. I think it is, rather than an impedance change. I think there's a cut on input 2 on the Princeton, which I've just discovered because somebody suggested I messed around with it a little bit, and I did. So thank you. I can't remember who it was, but I've mucked around with it a little bit, and I've managed to get the volume down a little bit for my ears in here. I still have to use the attenuator, however, to get the on the edge of breakup sort of, levels which I'm looking for. Anyway, this is what I've got today for you. Let's see if I can demonstrate these guitars adequately. Here we go. It's sort of, so this is the riff. You'll know it. Oh, I don't know where you mean if you don't. Sounds all right, doesn't it? It really does, and it all seems to work down here. We'll go through the volume and tone controls, but you could, well, hopefully see that I was mucking around with them a bit, and I had the tone rolled off on this pickup here. It sounds sweet, doesn't it? It's quite a lot of range there as well, isn't it? Versatile. I'm going to give that 8 out of 10. See if this one's the same. I think you noticed the neck pickup on the Ascent is a lot darker than the other one. I'll show you in a minute. I'll go straight to the other one, but this is wide open. Yeah, there's a little bit less range there, and that compares to this neck. It's got that snap, hasn't it? I like that. That's the neck. Incidentally, I worked out what that bit of foam was for. You can see the pickups slightly on the piss now, so the foam was obviously under there to straighten it up. I'll have to wait until I change the strings and I'll fix that. Bridge. Wide open. A bit more snap. I'd say that might have a little bit less versatility than the Ascent, if anything. But there's no doubt that these Seymour Duncan pickups sound, well, different. Better is, you know, subjective, isn't it? You might think the other one sounds better. They're all sweet though. But that's the difference of a set of pickups that will probably cost the same as that guitar, wouldn't they? If you bought these in a shop, Seymour Duncan 59s. Yeah, I think so. So that ain't doing a bad job, is it? there you go. That's what we got this week. It did the job, I think, didn't it? It showed the sounds from both guitars in a variety of positions. And I managed to play with my knobs quite a little bit this week. Les Pauls. I'm getting the hang of them. I'm slowly getting the hang of them and actually getting sounds, Les Paul-like sounds out of them, I hope. And both of these guitars did that. Yeah. Well, let's start. This is a review of each and a comparison. So let's start by doing the individual bit. The standard, the expensive one. What a fabulous guitar, really. It is a, you know, it is a proper, it's a proper instrument, isn't it? And that's what you're paying for with something like this. It's the look and it's the heritage, the legacy of partly Gibson legacy, this one, because it was made in Kalamazoo in the same factory that they made the original bursts in back in the 50s. So this is, yeah, it's got the mojo. It's got that mojo. It's a beast, isn't it? It's a looker. It's got all the good bits. All the good bits. You know, good woods, isn't it? Good tone woods. You know, Indian rosewood. It's got Seymour Duncan USA pickups. Hell, it's made in the USA, isn't it? So, you know, it's the real deal, really, isn't it? And it sounds sweet. It sounds sweet. So you can't, there's nothing to criticise about a Heritage H-150 standard, unless you're of the opinion that if you're going to pay that kind of money, why don't I just buy a Gibson? Well, that's for you to decide, isn't it? But certainly for connoisseurs of Leicesters, this is a really good alternative to a Gibson. This one in particular, I like it because it's used. This is 1995, so it's nearly 30 years old, and it's got that. It's got that mojo that I often talk about. So when you look at it, when you pick it up to play it, I think, well, that's heavy. It's got that mojo, and it'll make you feel good about yourself and about your playing. Having said that, the Ascent here, I find it easier to play than the standard. It's a lot lighter. It's over a pound. 1 pound 4 ounces lighter, I think it was, than this one. And it's got this comfort carve. And do you know what? That really does make a difference, I think. I noticed when I was looking at the playback, I didn't notice it. I might be wrong, but I think with the standard, I am often having to pick it up because the weight makes it slide down off my leg a little bit. And bearing in mind that all of this stuff, I only play sitting down, so it might not be relevant to, you know, these if you're planning standing up, planning to play standing up. But the Ascent here, so, well, that sounded sweet. This sounded pretty good, didn't it? As I've said often, it's not a massive difference between expensive and cheap guitars. It's not a massive difference. There is a difference. You can hear the difference. But boy, this sounded good. It sounded good. And all this worked. And it looks great. I really think the choice of finishing the top like this, albeit it's not maple, but well, I suppose that helps make it lighter, and it looks great. Not using the veneer, well, I think it's a good choice, but I like plain tops anyway. I actually prefer a good plain top to a bad flame. This is not a bad flame. I think this is a nice flame. But, you know, some of them are a little bit gaudy, a bit PRS, dare I say. So yeah, the Heritage Ascent, like £249. What again? What a great guitar, really. I'm pleasantly surprised actually, because being a bolt-on neck, it does remind me of the bolt-on neck Les Pauls from the 70s. I think Columbus used to make them. And I always thought of them as being cheap, inferior copies, and that's immediately what I thought this would be, kind of in some way inferior because it's got a bolt-on neck. Well, you know what? I didn't really notice. I really didn't notice, and I can't say that it made it sound different to a set neck Les Paul, because it didn't. It sounded like a Les Paul, didn't it? Or it sounded like a H-150, if you prefer. So good job, really. Good job. And I think so. The thing about this is it's a really good option for. It's a really good budget option for brand snobs like myself, who would prefer to all right. So if you want a cheap banger to gig with, if you're a little bit of a brand snob like I am, what a great choice! What a great choice! There are a lot of other options in this price range and cheaper. All the HBs and all that stuff. There's lots of options, and lots of you are going to say, well, that's better because of this and because of that. And yeah, but if you're a brand snob, what's not to love about that? Now, the big question, or not the question that I've asked at this point, but I'm gonna mention it now, because that's really what alerted me to this range, was the 60 cycle hum and the Phil McKnight pieces that Heritage had released, this import brand, and made it. I call them import brands, made in the C word. I try not to get into all that, because a lot of people they go off. So I'm that's not a thing as far as I'm concerned here, for the purposes of talking about guitars, But is it a good move? It ain't Coca-Cola, it's rice. That would have worked if this was made in Vietnam, but you know what I mean? It's like a proper American brand, Heritage. It's based on that, isn't it? And now they've done this. So is it a smart move? Well, I think it's going to sell a lot of guitars, and I think that what Phil McKnight said, and I mentioned at the beginning, that their Heritage is as good as they are. They're not well known. They're very well respected amongst guitar aficionados, but they're not well known, and most people can't afford £2,000. Can't afford to spend £2,000 on a guitar, and they're buying other stuff. So, if nothing else, it's going to massively raise the awareness of Heritage as a brand, and be a gateway to, the more expensive ones, hopefully. So hopefully it'll turn out as a win. There was a little label that came on this one that fell off. So it says, our legacy, your journey. I'll read it to you. Embark on a musical adventure with the Ascent collection. Designed to elevate your skills and ignite your passion. This guitar amplifies every moment of your journey. From hometown gigs to global stages, this guitar is your constant companion. Well, yeah, I mean, well, hopefully it will. It will ignite people's passion for Heritage guitars and launch them on a journey to global stages, playing hopefully more expensive versions, you know, for the American craftsmen that set this up. But do you know what? You could do it with this. I mean, when I first saw that, I kind of laughed. Go, hey, it's not going to be that good. Well, you know what? You could do that with this. There's nothing wrong with it. So, yeah. It's a tough one, though, isn't it? Because it's going to, you know, upset. I noticed on the US Heritage Guitars website, there's no mention of this Ascent collection whatsoever. So I do wonder if it's a soft launch for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, I think it's ultimately for us, guitar buying public, that might want to have a heritage. Look, me, you know, I found it very difficult to justify going out and spending $2,000-ish on a new one of these. So I didn't do it. But I was lucky enough to find a local one on a deal. I ended up paying $1,500 for this, which is still a lot of money, but it does mean that I can probably flip it and at least get my money back, if not make a tiny little bit of profit on it. And that is a possible intention of this one. I got this specifically to do the big old heavyweight comparison with all my other Les Pauls. And there's 5 in that. And when I've done that, which will be soon, I'm going to be flipping probably a majority of those. I think the aim is to keep 1 or 2. So that's the intention. So this is maybe the answer. And hopefully it'll just support the American operation. In the meantime, a lot of you kids are going to be hands-on. A nice, affordable heritage, which looks the part and sounds the bollocks. There you go. And don't forget, I've got another one of these to review from, if you watched last week's unboxing at the end, did you remember the second box? Yeah, this one. Do you remember from last week? I'm not going to show you what it is. But thanks to all of you that signed up to the TV channel last week and saw me unbox that. You know what it is. You know what's coming up. Probably not next week, but I'm going to review that one in a few weeks' time. It's another heritage, obviously. So we're looking forward to that. That's it for now. Thanks for joining us. Come back next week, same time, same place. Now, let's just clarify. These films drop on YouTube 12 noon +1 Greenwich Mean Time. +1 for daylight saving. So wherever you are in the world, 12 noon +1 GMT. Join us. Click early so that YouTube thinks we're popular and help the channel out that way. Or sign up to the TV channel. That's the best way of doing it, really, because that helps finances this going forward, and that will make sure that this YouTube nonsense continues. Okay. Wherever you watch, it's very much appreciated. Come back, join us again next week, see what we're up to then. Cheers for now. Ta-ra.